All right, I think we got all of our housekeeping done here. So we're streaming out to a live audience today on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So once again, thank you everybody for logging on to this presentation. We appreciate your time this afternoon. Again, this is Gary Paquin and Tony Paquin, the two founders of iRemedy Healthcare. Tony is our CEO, and we'll be able to share a lot of our vision and operations with you today. We're excited about what we're doing. We're on a very important mission with this company, and that is to change the way in which medical supplies are delivered in America. In this presentation, if you have any questions, there's a panel that's on your right-hand side with the little arrow. If you click on that, you can actually type in a question at the end of the presentation, about 15 or 20 minutes. We'll pop that open and answer any questions that you might have. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for joining us. Again, this is Gary Paquin. Our mission is to deploy the first AI-driven medical supply marketplace that provides price management and transparency for the world's largest catalog delivered by diversified global distributors and manufacturers. We're going to explain what all that means here shortly. But it is a big industry. It's a $130 billion market and over 1 trillion worldwide, by the way. And we'll share with you also during this presentation why it is indeed becoming a worldwide market and why that's important to the distribution of medical supplies in the United States. Our mission is to drive better prices, better selection, and more reliable sourcing. Tony, if you'd like to make any comments.
I could jump in and just say, we started this process a couple of years ago. Ended up developing some really proprietary AI-driven technology. We'll talk more about that. And price management and transparency, may just sound nice, but it's actually extremely important in the area of medical and healthcare and medical supplies. You hear a lot of conversation around that, but right now it's just a terribly inefficient system where there's a lot of obfuscation and black box sort of pricing controls that result in very expensive supplies, which then people see when they go to the doctor or insurance companies pay their bills. So we'll talk more about that and why we got there here in a few minutes.
And we saw over the last couple of years the grim reality of what happens when global healthcare supply chains failed. We saw it firsthand here in the United States and what that meant to the economy and to literally human lives across the country. But the important thing to note is that shortages continue and supply chain frailties were exposed over this last couple of years. And so that was one of the driving forces behind iRemedy and our mission.
Well, it's interesting is this issue of shortages in the market is not something new. We all saw it during COVID, but in fact, those of us in healthcare have known that this has gone on for a good 10 years or more. It's really common and an ongoing problem that there's shortages of drugs and supplies. And it really tracks back to being due to the globalization of the supply chain and then really inherently all of the inefficiencies that are built into the market. COVID brought it to light, so everybody was focused on it. But those of us who have operated professionally in the healthcare world, like Gary and I have done for the last 15 years or so in the hospital world, this is a common problem.
Let's look at the healthcare supplies market. As we mentioned, it's a big industry. It's the largest single industry in the United States, one of the driving forces between the high cost of healthcare in America. It's a $130 billion market. And it includes, by the way, medical supplies for obviously those things you think of, hospitals and government agencies, surgery centers, but also physician offices and consumers and urgent care centers and so forth. There's a wide range of users of medical supply. And this industry has suffered from lack of price transparency and fairness for decades. And you can almost say for over 100 years. If you were to take 100 different doctors and put them into a big auditorium, you'd find out that every single one of them are paying different prices for their medical supplies. It just doesn't make any sense, but that's the way which this industry has been run. something that we wanted to change. And as product data inaccuracies and shortfalls are amongst major suppliers, and it's rampant. It's getting worse every year instead of getting better. And so there, we see a lot of changes taking place. We knew that the supply chain fragility was highlighted during the pandemic, but as we said earlier, it continues to this very day. So it requires a radical change in the world of medical supplies and how we deliver them and how we give people access to them and the information required. Tony is going to touch on a lot of that as we get into that. This industry is completely dependent on layers of intermediaries, and end users have little to no control over the supply chain. Without getting down into the weeds too much, we can tell you that, probably no surprise, it's a highly complicated industry. It's a highly regulated industry. And so there's a lot of, just like with pharmacy drug pricing, it's very confusing. And it's the same thing that's taking place because of all these intermediaries. And what that translates to is a 40% premium, if you will, markup on medical supplies.
Yeah, all of that is to say it's just a really inefficient system that's not working very well, and it's very, very expensive for doctors, for hospitals, for surgery centers, for the U.S. government, who are all people that we have served over the last 5 to 10 years. It's just, it's an industry and a market that, unlike many other markets, just did not modernize in the last 25 years. And people are pretty exposed to it, they're pretty aware of this, but it's just not a very efficient system. The supply chain dynamics essentially come down to that the demand for healthcare products, continues to skyrocket. So going back to, on the one hand, you have this broken, very inefficient system, but on the other hand, the demand for healthcare as a whole in the United States, and therefore for all the products used by the healthcare industry, drugs, devices, and medical supplies, that just continues to accelerate and to grow dramatically. Likewise, the world of B2B and B2C, and that is, online purchases by both professionals, by companies, by businesses, as well as by consumers, obviously continues to grow. I mean, we saw this in the B2C world and the advent of Amazon over the last 20 years. Everybody has gone online to buy everything. But over the last several years, we've seen that take place in the B2B world, the business to business world. But yet in healthcare, the back end supply chain, on the other hand, is just not working. It's continuing to fail. Factories and global distributors, continue to have problems. They have worldwide shortages of products, and they just fail to deliver cost effectively and reliably to the end users. So on the one hand, you have a high growth growing market, but on the other hand, it's just fundamentally inefficient, failing to achieve its goals.
Because the existing players in this market are still mired in technologies that are generations old, and that's led us to where we are today. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our leadership of iRemedy, and we've got two experts in the world of technology and healthcare leading the company. My brother Tony is the CEO of the company, and Tony is a technologist. We've been working together for over 30 years. He's invented a lot of great technology, written a lot of great software programs, founded a couple of different software associations, statewide and national organizations in the area of technology. He is the founder and CEO of Agency One. That's an insurance software company that we started. We sold that to a CNA insurance company and then grew that to be the largest software company in the insurance industry. He's the founder and CEO of Medinex. We did an IPO on the NASDAQ with Medinex. Jim Harding, our Chief Technology Officer, prior to joining us, he was the Vice President of Technology at Amazon and literally built and launched the Amazon Marketplace. So bringing that vision and that his genius over to this world of medical supplies. Prior to that, Jim founded two tech companies. He sold both of those to Amazon, very successful in area. And right out of, prior to that, he was a founder and CTO of Multiscale, That was a healthcare EMR technology application, which is how we met Jim quite a few years ago. Yeah, interestingly, Jim, right out of college with some buddies, started a little company, Seattle Computer Products, and created PC-DOS, which later became part of Microsoft. They bought his products to launch Microsoft. So between Jim and Tony, I feel we've got the best and the brightest in terms of technology and understanding healthcare and bringing this a new solution, if you will, to the world of medical supply.
Yeah, and Gary, you can fill out that slide, and I'll just kind of touch on Jim a little bit more. You know, in addition to Jim, we have built a world-class team of senior engineers who are, you know, specialists in their fields. In some cases, AI, other front-end and back-end developers, but it's really a world-class team. You know, I'm a guy that has spent 20 years in healthcare and insurance and was an application software developer. Jim is at a whole nother level. You know, he's a big data, you know, big system, web-based visionary. We both have patents that we have successfully filed and been issued. I think I've got 3 or 4 patents with another half dozen or more pending. And Jim probably has about double that patents. He has patent on the Amazon Marketplace. He had a database patent with Paul Allen at Microsoft. He's a great inventor and just a super great human being also, by the way, wants to do good things for the world. And he's very motivated to bring improvement to the medical supply industry. When we began this project of trying to improve the distribution of medical supplies and we wanted to build a marketplace, the right guy to go to have us help do that, you know, to help us do that was Jim Harding.
Look, Tony, walk us through the hyper marketplace, what we've invented.
Yeah, so what happened was years ago, we were doing work with hospitals. We'd worked with about 600 hospitals across the country doing consulting and identified that there was this gross inefficiency in the acquisition of medical supplies. Being technology guys, we said, hey, let's go build a marketplace and improve upon it. And then ultimately met Jim and really began to solve the problems. Well, the problem is the healthcare industry is very complex, sometimes for bad reasons, sometimes for good reasons. It's highly regulated, it's very bureaucratic, it's monopolistic, and it's very, very, very large. And as a result, it's difficult to automate. So we set off to do that. We created something that we affectionately call the hyper marketplace. It's not just an e-commerce system, it's a complete supply chain automation platform that uses this very highly proprietary AI technology that we've developed. So some of the highlights of that is first, we believe that it is the world's online automatically maintained healthcare products catalog. So we have bots essentially that kind of run around the internet and help pull together data and improve and refine the information in our catalog. That's very much an ongoing process, and you'll see that those are some of the goals that we have. That every year we're always looking to build not only the size of our catalog, but the intelligence of our catalog. And that's a key metric. We're currently at about 500,000 products available, and we're growing. We're hoping to have 1 million products in the catalog by the end of this year. That's you know, an ongoing process. The product information is one of the key things. I mean, it sounds simple, right? You want to have a description, an image, a price of a product. Again, in healthcare, it's very different. As Gary described in his opening comments, you could have 100 doctors paying 100 different prices. That seems really fundamentally unfair. And it's also very difficult to maintain because you could have you could have 1 million products with 1,000 different prices. Well, you'd have 1 billion different data points. It becomes a very large, complex data system to maintain. That product information is maintained automatically by this highly proprietary technology. The other thing that we've done, and we'll talk a little more about, where our products come from. On the one hand, we work with the largest distributors and big brand companies in the healthcare industry, but we also have an emphasis on what we refer to as factory direct or first mile. So in the e-commerce world, there's a lot of emphasis on the so-called last mile. Jeff Bezos, while Jim Harding was at Amazon, obsessed over the idea of getting product to your house or to your office, focusing on that last mile, and obviously has done a incredibly good job at achieving that goal very efficiently. But the first mile has been ignored, and by that we mean, from the factory and really automating the process of allowing these massive healthcare systems to buy more direct from the OEMs and eliminate or reduce the number of intermediaries. Because right now, those intermediaries drive up the cost of healthcare by everybody taking a bite out of the apple cost-wise while the product moves through the supply chain. We currently have served, well over 10,000 customers that would include professionals, doctors, surgery centers, and other healthcare providers, hospitals, but also major government agencies, the Department of Defense, the Strategic National Stockpile, and others, as well as manufacturers, academic, universities, education, and consumer customers.
Talk a bit about our proprietary technology.
Absolutely. So this is where the power starts to come in, and it's not the kind of thing that we could cover in a 10-minute webinar, but this is where we've built really unique code to achieve the goal of automating the healthcare supply chain. So one is we developed this proprietary technology and processes to automate and scale the marketplace. So again, we don't just run a good e-commerce store a la Amazon. Our back-end technology, the bots, the AI bots, if you will, are automatically operating, to automate processes. So those processes might be to verify an order, or to place an order, or to track an order, or to validate a price, or to validate availability, to find additional products. There's all kinds of processes used in our business. Those have been automated by our bots. The second thing is that essentially what our technology does, one simple way to attempt to describe it, is it turns the internet into a database or a global products database, because our bots can run around the internet and extract data automatically. And it's a very key part of that. And then those bots then work to create and maintain something that we affectionately call the UHMPC, the Universal Health and Medical Product Catalog. This is an ongoing effort to improve the size and the quality of the UHMPC. Our goal is to have the smartest and largest healthcare catalog of products in the world. It's currently at about 500,000 products and growing. As part of this, we have these technology agents, and these bots, again, we call them agents. They maintain pricing, availability, they process orders, they communicate with clients and suppliers, and they track and report problems in the supply chain, and they interact with their human counterparts on our staff. As a result, it's a highly scalable platform. Think of it like a toolbox, and we're still using the toolbox to find problems that we can solve. So we have a lot more work to do, but the idea is it's a toolbox that will help us automate the order capture, fulfillment, and supply chain management process.
It's an amazing technology, and it has a global impact. As Tony described, the iRemedy catalog and sourcing technology has been used by the United States Department of Defense to enlist iRemedy for sourcing of critical vaccine-related supplies. In fact, we are the largest provider of needles and syringes to the United States for part of Operation Warp Speed, provided over 1.2 billion needles and syringes. It was one of the largest airlifts in medical history, by the way, in the United States. We've been listed as a qualified United Nations supplier. We've distributed products to the Pan Atlantic Health Organization, or PAHO. We ship the products to European and African nations. We've ongoing supply contracts with the DoD, the Strategic National Stockpile, and other government agencies. People sometimes don't realize it, but the U.S. government is the largest user of medical supplies. The VA, Tony, how many lives does the VA cover?
Yeah, I think it's around 40 million Americans get some form of their health care through the VA. They're definitely a very important healthcare provider in this country.
And as you, no surprise, in fact, little pre-announcement here, Tony's got a book coming out shortly to talk about the worldwide distribution of medical supplies, because factories and distributors are located all over the world. Everything from the United Kingdom to China, Malaysia, Vietnam, Hungary, Mexico, etc. Many of them have turned to iRemedy to reach this medical supply users, both bringing products into the United States and then also for worldwide distribution. Is this information link, if you will, doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Tony, talk to us a little bit about the UHMPC goals.
Yeah, so the thing to understand about the UHMPC, the Universal Health and Medical Products Catalog. So, you know, the idea is that while we're selling medical supplies and while we're building technology and while we're delivering product much needed to surgery centers and dentists and hospitals and the government and so forth, we're also trying to build an asset of information, and that is inside of the UHMPC. And one way to think about it is that there's two views, if you will, or two ways to consider the UHMPC. So the second one that I list here, the UHMPC 2023 Marketplace Catalog, that's the traditional catalog that you would often think of when you're thinking about an e-commerce company or any company that's distributing products, the catalog of products that they offer to the market. So, you know, currently, as we've mentioned, it's 500,000. We'd like to push that to about 1 million. And our goal is to have a better medical products marketplace than Amazon. For that matter, the best medical products marketplace in the world. That's our goal. And I think we're, you know, in the neighborhood probably of already achieving that in terms of breadth and depth of offering, and especially when we talk about being publicly available. But the other UHMPC purpose is really just to be a source of information. So on the one hand, we track products that we sell and make those products available to our customers. On the other hand, we're just tracking product information because it's so desperately needed. You know, I've had calls with, you know, a member of the National Security Council at the White House talking about the availability of products and what is made in America and what is not. By the way, the answer is not much. But there's really no good database of this information. There's nowhere you can go to that is a master catalog of every healthcare product that you might ever want to research or use. Our goal is to make the UHMPC that high quality, comprehensive source of medical product data. And then both of those will reside ultimately in the iRemedy.com platform.
So we want to thank you very much. Well, I'm going to summarize on a couple of key points as Tony talked about. Number one, we believe that the UHMPC is the largest and smartest medical products catalog on the internet. And that's going to be, you know, increasingly important as we move into the future. So as we see the worldwide demand for products. And we have a very highly proprietary marketplace technology developed by the creator of Amazon's marketplace. And Jim will actually tell you that he believes this technology is superior. It's the next generation, if you will, of marketplace technology to build in this AI system. Our team, our executive team, has had a successful track record of acquisitions as well as an IPO. And that's our direction with this company. Revenues exceeded 50 million in 2022. And we feel very, very strongly about 2023. We've got some great activity and pipeline building. And finally, of course, you know, we're in a $130 billion market and one that is in desperate need of change. That's why we do what we do. Tony, I don't know if you have any summary comments that you would like to make, and then we'll open it up for any Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, those are those key ideas, right? We have this database, the UHMPC, that we're working on building. We have this proprietary technology, and I would really emphasize it's more of a comprehensive supply chain solution. We have ways of rolling that out to other clients, branded solutions, and different ways that we can deliver the technology directly to customers, or we can use the technology to run our own product distribution business. And again, with me and Gary and our CFO and Jim and various other board members and so forth, we just have a lot of experience building businesses, either selling them successfully in exits, or in the case of us, doing the NASDAQ IPO once before. Great revenue run rate, huge market. I cannot overemphasize sort of the need in the market. It's inefficient. It just doesn't work very well. If you are a physician or you know a physician or a healthcare provider, they likely are going to reinforce that statement. They've experienced it firsthand. It's just fundamentally an unfair market, and we look to improve that as much as we can.
As I mentioned, if you have any questions, you can open up the GoToMeeting panel, which is on the top right of your screen. There's a little orange arrow that clicks left and right. If you scroll down to where it says questions, you can type in questions. I see one's coming in right here. It says, who is our main target, customer target, I guess is what they mean.
Yeah, I could address that. So I would say, in 2023, we're very specific about our main growth target, growth market segment, is we refer to it as the middle market. And specifically what we mean are ambulatory surgery centers and urgent care centers and our other large medical practices in that sort of middle group. So in other words, we're saying not hospitals, and on the other hand, not small doctor's office or dental offices, although we do business with all of those and they're valuable customers. But our big target growth market, especially today, would be ambulatory surgery centers. They're big users of medical supplies. They're looking for cost improvement. They're profit driven, so they're sensitive to paying exorbitant high costs. And the cost of a typical item in a surgery, I mean, it can vary 100-fold by whether you get the right pricing or not. So that's definitely our target market for this year.
Another interesting question just came in. I think it's very accurate, very interesting and timely that you should say this. Are we working with any other major medical suppliers in this industry? Because I know there's a lot of major players there. If you could speak to that a little bit about our approach.
So in many ways, we're like a frenemy, right? We're a friend and a competitor at the same time, maybe. But we, I hate to call out the big companies, without their permission to do so, but I will tell you that they're in this industry. There are, if you're in the business, you'll know, there's about 3 to 5 very major distributors, multi-billion-dollar companies. There are a couple of large GPOs, group purchase organizations that dominate the industry, and there's about 3 to 4 major distributors that dominate the industry. We work with all of them. We bring value to them. Sometimes we're customers, sometimes we're partners, but we made the decision at the very beginning of this project to disrupt or reinvent the industry, but to do it from inside the industry, to do it in partnership with some of the legacy companies who were feeling their own stresses and pressures and needed to find ways to improve. So simple answer is we work with most of the big guys.
That's the question. Let's see. I think I got another. Sorry, am I late? Are there any other? Let's see if I can get this to read right. Any other sections that I can join this week? Actually, we're going to be doing these updated investor meetings weekly. Tony and I were talking about doing them on Thursdays, later in the day on Thursday. That way people can kind of get their weeks situated. so forth. But as you would imagine, there's a lot going on in the world of medical supply that is urgently needed. And we're doing a lot of, we believe we're doing a lot of great things. So we want to be able to talk about that on a weekly basis. So we'll get that scheduled. We'll get that scheduled out for you pretty soon. So
I've got a couple of other questions that came in on other platforms. One was, it kind of looks like, what opportunities are we going after with the government? And as we mentioned a bit ago, the government is a very important and strategic player in the medical supply world. So one, they buy supplies, they stock them in the Strategic National Stockpile. Two is the VA, as we discussed, is a very high consumer. So on the one hand, we're pursuing, there are RFPs that come out from the government. We routinely respond to those. We have a team of people that are focused on that. It's an important part of our business, and we'll continue to grow it in the years to come. Additionally, we believe that our technology can bring value to some of the things that the government is doing, and we're looking at ways to promote that. So it'd be way premature to discuss that publicly, but clearly there's opportunity, and we're actively pursuing conversations to advance the use of our technology. And finally, the government is very focused or has made a priority out of the initiative of establishing factories that are manufacturing medical supplies made in America or manufactured in our ally countries. Might be Mexico or Australia or Israel or Canada, wherever the case might be, but mostly in the US. And we're very active in that. We co-founded something called the SAMS Coalition. It's the subject of the book that I'm writing. But what it means for the business is that we are establishing ourselves as the go-to-market solution for these new companies. And we're actively looking for them. We have many that have come to us, and we'll be the distribution, in many cases exclusive distribution for this growing niche, if you will, or segment of companies that are manufacturing medical supplies here in the United States.
That's all the questions I had. So good session. Thank you very much. We had a good turnout today. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we will be doing these on a regular basis. If you have any questions, like further information, certainly feel free to reach out to either Tony or myself. Our emails are pretty straightforward, Tony and Gary at iRemedy.com. We're also listed as part of our Reg A offering at republic.com, as well as invest.iremedy.com. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic spring coming up in your part of the world. I know it's beautiful down here in Florida, and we thank you very much for attending today.